order on March 23rd, 2026 here at EVIT, and I have asked Dr. Metcalf to give the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve the minutes of March 9th, 2026.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Please call a roll call vote.
Roll call?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, not roll call.
By acclamation?
Acclamation, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the minutes from March 9th, 2026, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Okay, I need to abstain on that. I should have said that first. I need to abstain since I wasn't here. Okay, Dr. Wilson, item 4, call to the public.
We do not have any, ma'am.
Okay, then we are moving on to item 5, our executive session. Do we have a motion?
Move that we go into executive session for items identified in A and B of 5.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, please call a vote.
All those in favor of executive session for items 5A and 5B, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
And
you.
we'll just stay here if that's okay with you guys. Thank you. Watkins?
Yep,
All right.
Okay.
right where you left me.
Okay, we are on item 7, consent agenda. Do I have a motion for items A through D?
Move that we approve items 7A through D in the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Oh, there is no discussion.
What is that?
It's a playback. It's just a playback, or it's lagged by 5 seconds or something.
Oh, okay. That was weird.
That's okay. We've got a second, and please call vote by acclamation.
All those in favor of items, consent agenda, items 7A through D, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. Personnel. Do I have a motion for item 8A?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, Dr. Wilson.
Yeah, I just want to say Madam President, but yeah, hi.
Hi, it's all good.
Members of the governing board. So part of our remodel is we created a testing center. We needed a testing center because we're expanding our HSE program, but also with our associate degree, we also have the HESI testing. And so we wanted to have the ability to have a location that we could bring our students in and provide that opportunity for them to test here, not test someplace else. What we were able to do is to actually expand that, or our goal is to expand that to not just service the students that plan to take programming with us, but to service students that need to take those exams, whether they're going to go to us or not, right? And so that is a testing center. In order to do that, though, we need to have an individual that is going to be responsible for managing the testing center. Part of what we always look for are ways that we can utilize our space and our programming to generate revenue, and this is one of those. By expanding that space to be a testing center that services not just our students, but any student, it's a revenue generator, but also is a service to our community. And so this is a job description that allows us to do that.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, please call a vote by acclamation.
All those in favor of item 8A, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion for
Motion
personnel?
to approve item 8B on the agenda.
I will second that. Okay, Dr. Wilson.
Members of the governing board, so we have an asset management team, and the asset management team is designed to track our assets, right? So when a product that comes in, gets tagged, gets recorded, gets dispersed out in the organization, but then we routinely have to go manage to make sure we know where those assets are. And at some point in time, then the asset runs its life expectancy. We bring the asset in, and we put it on the state auction. That's the process that we utilize. And when we were an organization that serviced 2,300 students, the assets were far smaller. As we've gotten bigger, we've added to the asset management positions. So there's 2 that are there right now. What we're asking to do is to reclassify one of those 2 positions to make it an asset manager 1, which is currently exists, and an asset manager 2, which would be a portion of that asset management, but also do our records retention. So this doesn't change the FTE, it doesn't change the number of employees, it just changes the role and responsibility those positions would have.
Excellent. Any questions? Okay, please call for a vote by acclamation.
All those in favor of item 8B, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 8C, is there a motion?
Also motion to approve 8C.
I'm going to take that as
Second.
well. Okay. You can shoot Stanley. Okay, Dr. Wilson.
I'm going to actually turn this over to Dr.
Dr.
Doolin.
Doolin.
Hi, good evening, board members. It's a pleasure to be here with you. So on this is just a motion to have some clear guidelines around our hard to fill with clinical instructors. This doesn't happen very often, but I'll give you a scenario in which it does happen, is when we're sending either our LPN, RN, or nursing assistant students, if our clinical site is significantly far away from any clinical instructor. Example, we get a rotation in Casa Grande. We may have a clinical instructor who's willing to take that 12-hour shift in Casa Grande, but they're going to request drive time. So we would add on the hour drive time down and the hour drive time back, but that would have to be approved through this process as outlined. So it's very rarely, it's usually about 1 to 2 hours if a shift is significantly far from the valley and any available clinical instructors.
Is it drive time or mileage?
It's drive time because they're paid hourly.
Okay.
So we usually do it by time. We try to do no clinical sites that are greater than 2 hours from EVIT campus. However, we have also, I want to commend our HR department because they have done an active job of recruiting clinical instructors on the west side, the east side, north, south. So we don't run into this very often because usually we even have some instructors that live like in Florence, Casa Grande, that will pick up those, but every once in a while we'll have a shift that we just can't get picked up. And so we need someone from this area to drive it.
Makes sense.
So not a problem with slow drivers, though?
No, it's not. It's usually whatever Google says.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, please call the vote on item 8C.
All those in favor of item 8C, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. Have a motion for item 8D, personnel. Do I have a motion for 8D?
Move that we approve item 8D.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Madam President, I second.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion? Okay, please call the vote.
All those in favor of item 8D, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us to item 9, information and discussion. We will do 9A. And Dr. Wilson or Mr. Colvin?
Counselor.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a policy revision on our cash handling. This is a response to one of the Auditor General's findings. And if you have any substantive questions
Bless you.
about it, I will defer to the CFO, Edith Perez.
I'm just glad we are still making changes based on the Auditor General's report. I think that's great. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to item 9B. Dr. Wilson.
Members of the governing board, I am actually going to turn this portion over to Ms. Perez, who has worked diligently over the past 2 weeks, getting us to a position of being able to explain to you the different options and opportunities that you have in relationship to our contracts and compensation for employees. As a reminder, tonight you'll have an action item in which you'll be asked to provide a % increase, whatever you choose to do, as well as some other possible opportunities that Ms. Perez will walk you through before we get to the action item. Ms. Perez?
Good evening. So what I want to start with is doing a recap of the presentation I did during the last board meeting. You do have the presentation in your packet, but as a reminder, the cost of living and the national cost of living increases anywhere between 3 to 3.5%. However, in the valley, we've seen a slight higher CPI. So we're looking at Maricopa County trending anywhere between 5 and 10%, with the average being about in the Metro Valley area about 3.5% to 5%. During the meeting, I also gave you the compensation for EVIT's instructional staff, with the average being, with the starting base salary being $51,615, but the current average teacher salary is about $70,212. That doesn't include the 301 compensation. When we looked at the 301 compensation and added the average to that, we're looking at an average teacher compensation of about $82,000. New hires for the current year have ranged between $54,000 and $79,000, with the average being $67,000 of all of those new instructors this year. The average compensation that I added to the base for the for 301, it's approximately a little bit under $12,000, which obviously does help us being able to retain our staff. For non-instructional staff, we did do an analysis, compensation analysis, and for the most part, we are competitive with most of our other public schools, our institutions. We also did a market comparison with some of our peer districts, and we did realize that on average, we are competitive with them. When we look at the other CTEDs, their compensation, obviously we needed to do a conversion to EVIT's rate, because in some cases they do 11-month contract versus us doing the 10-month, but we are competitive as it relates to them. As far as historical salary increases, I also shared with you that thanks to the commitment from the board, you have offered the instructional staff about, on average, 50% over total 50% over the last 7 years, with non-instructional staff being on average 30%. Just as a reminder, that includes not only your annualized salary increases, but also we've done reclassification of a number of positions and reassess people based on the salary guidelines, so that to ensure that they were being compensated fairly and that new hires wouldn't exceed those that had the like experience and education. Within the salary guidelines, you've also given us the opportunity to have a hard-to-fill, let's say, stipend. Hard-to-fill stipend that has been included of up to $20,000. We understand that in the case of our instructional positions, sometimes it's very difficult for us to be able to compete with industry, especially in our trade programs and many of our health programs. So this has given us the opportunity to be able to recruit for those positions. Over the last 3 years, we've had about 36 hard-to-fill positions, so we have been able to fulfill those positions through that stipend. How do we compare in other districts when we're looking at some of the increases as far as what they're projecting? They're ranging between 2%, 3%, 4%. We do know that Westmeck is offering a 5% increase into the new year. But I think in our case, we have been more aggressive in terms of our overall increases over the last few years. As far as financial planning, as of right now, we're estimating that we're going to have about a 6%, not a 6%, a $6 million carryover into the new year. And that is a conservative estimated based on the assumption that all of our students will stay. And I'll always remind you that our funding is based on instructional hours and based on the number of the students staying here through the whole year. So that's why it makes it a little bit more challenging to give you a clean cut number at this point. We'll be able to give you that a little bit a better estimate in May and then in June as well. But that is a good conservative number that you can utilize at this point. We're also trending upward in terms of our enrollment for next year. And then projected costs, when we're looking at the salary increases, I gave you a chart that gives you the cost. So a 1% increase will cost the district $271,000. So we gave you a chart to give you the different costs and the funding areas of the impact. So when we're looking at funding resources, we have our M&O, our classroom site fund, we have our adult ed, and then we also have state and federal grants. What's also important to note is that even if there is no enrollment growth, which we're hoping based on the current enrollment trends that we will have, there's already a 2% increase to the base level. So even if we didn't have student growth, we're estimating that the district will receive about $750,000 in addition to that could be utilized for the increases. The other piece that's important to know, and you'll have this as an agenda item, is the increases to health plans. Right now, we did an RFP, and I know that during our last board meeting, I indicated that we had received 12 responses. Unfortunately for us, we received 2 that were specific to healthcare. The other were for auxiliary benefits, dental, vision, and that. So we were only able to do a comparison on 2. That being said, we also did a quick analysis of the health plans that, how do we compare to other districts? And of those districts that did reply to us, I think our plan is robust in that we offer very similar plans. We offer high deductible plans, we offer copay plans, but also EVIT does a little bit more as far as the contribution. We We offer a waiver for those employees that already carry insurance, so we offer a waiver to those employees. The other districts don't. We offer a $600 health incentive plan to try to get our employees to do not preventative, I'm thinking of maintenance. Preventative medical, and so the other districts don't. We also do a contribution, into the HSA plan that the other districts don't. For the most part, there was one district that was doing it until this year, but they're removing that from their plan offerings. There's another district that does offer a little bit of a contribution, but it's about half of what we have. So just to summarize, EVIT's current health plans through the ASPATE program, we offer 3 plans. We offer a high deductible plan, a copay plan, and then what we call the gold. We basically fund the lower 2 of the plans, and then 97% of the more costly plan, and then the health plan. That being said, I think, what did I miss, Dr. Wilson?
So that was a lot of information that Ms. Perez just provided. She has done an amazing job, I think, the last 2 weeks trying to pull together as much as we are hoping you need in order to make an informed decision. I think part of what I remember in our conversation previously is it was important to you, and I know Mr. Lane had asked this, what is the cost to the district for 2, 4, 6, 8, 10%, and you see that. The healthcare we've talked about before, and I think you'll see it as an action item, even though we had 2 different proposals. The current provider that we have is we pulled together a committee, and that committee recommended staying with that current provider at least for another year. I think, as Ms. Perez indicated, the healthcare program that we provide is actually relatively rich. We just need to have a better way to work with the third party, and that's what our process is this year. I think there's also value in looking at the possibility of providing $1,000 stipend for individuals that complete their contract. I think one of the challenges that we have during the course of the year is that we have turnover. And I don't know that necessarily $1,000 will dissuade somebody from leaving, although it might. But I also think there's value in rewarding somebody that stayed. And so from our perspective, I think you have a number of different options, right? An option is percent increase to the base. As you heard, Westmac is offering a 5%. The cost of living in the Phoenix area is anywhere between 3 and 10%, with the average being closer to 4 or 4.5%. But also then funding the healthcare as we currently have, which is a more robust plan than most offer, and then potentially looking at that a stipend for those who complete their contract at the end of the year. And obviously, if you come in halfway through the year, it'd be prorated as a way to incentivize people to stay, but also to reward those individuals at the end of the year. So I think there's a number of different options that Ms. Perez has kind of worked up and laid out there for you that hopefully will give you the information you need to make decisions and the action items so that we can then turn and get contracts out tomorrow.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Are there any other questions or comments or discussion at this point? Okay.
A quick question.
Yes.
Ms. Perez, in terms of the factors laid out in each of these, of course, as we increase in percentage increases, do you have any particular concern about our ability to pay for any of these increases that were we to choose? I'm thinking of the upper end. Do you have any concerns that any of that would be inconsistent with careful, management of the district's finances?
Given that, again, our funding is based on student enrollment and the number of days, my recommendation wouldn't necessarily be to go at on the top of the percentages, simply because we want to make sure that we understand where we stand at the end of the fiscal year, okay. And the fact that we do also want to be able to reward, as Dr. Wilson mentioned, that the retention piece, the fully fund the benefits, which is also important for our employees.
But you've also indicated that the trending so far in terms of student enrollment is good for us in terms of increasing ADM.
It is, but I think it's important to remember is when do those students show up and do they stay until the very end? So we're talking about the end of May of next year. we'll know what that financial impact is.
If somebody were to move for a 5% increase, would you start choking yourself and saying, "Oh my God, how are we going to do this?"
Actually, at 5%, I did the additional calculation of 5% seems reasonable within our conservative budget, because I've already taken into account the increase to the health plan and the additional cost for that retention bonus.
And you mentioned Westmeca, I guess, is talking about a 4.5%.
5%.
Yeah, okay.
And then with the increase in cost of living being anywhere between 3 and 4, roughly 5% would even be attractive or cover that as well.
Right.
Madam.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm deep in thought.
So, glass half empty guy. The only cautionary piece, and I agree with Ms. Perez, right? The cautionary piece is that we know that we currently are sitting in a really advantageous position, and we have been the last couple of years, and there's lots of reasons for that. But we are a school of choice, and we don't have neighborhood kids moving in that give us confidence that this X amount of students are going to grow through the system. And so whatever is committed to this year is going to be part of what is committed to in years to come, unless you want to pull salaries out. And I agree with Ms. Perez, I think 5% is reasonable, but that's why I think doing the stipend also makes sense, because that doesn't bake into the contract, right? You can, this time next year, opt not to do the stipend, and you haven't committed yourself to that being part of the base of the contract. And so I think 5% is reasonable, but I think that if you wanted to do more than that, that's where that $1,000 stipend for completing your contract makes sense, because it rewards individuals, but also doesn't hold you into a system that you're now obligated, or else you're reducing pay this time next year if our enrollment doesn't continue to trend up, if that makes sense.
So Madam President, Dr. Wilson, so are you talking about 5% plus the?
Yes. Yeah, 5%, yes, so 5% on the base. To Dr. Metcalf's point, that gives our folks a cost of living plus a little bit, right? Fully fund the healthcare that we currently have, which is a more rich plan than what many are offering, and then also provide the $1,000 if you complete your contract stipend to reward individuals, but also that doesn't get baked into your future costs because you cannot offer that stipend next year. On a side note, I think that $1,000 stipend also is more advantageous to the lower end of our salary schedule than to the upper end, right? Because $1,000 for an employee that's making $28,000 a year is significantly greater than a percent increase. I mean, if you would have gone to a 6% increase or a 7% increase, that individual that's making, $28,000, $32,000 a year, $1,000 is going to be more than that. And so I think you're actually giving, on the lower end, actually a greater bump too by that stipend, but you're not beholden yourself to it to future budgets.
So Madam President, I'm going to make the motion for 5%, but how do I do the 5% plus the?
We're not there.
We're not there yet.
We're not
Yeah,
there.
it should be a different motion.
We'll get there.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Perez, Dr. Wilson. Let's move to our action items. So we are at item 10A, policy revision. Do I have a motion to approve or adopt the policy? Do I have a motion? Anyone want to make a motion?
Madam President, I will make a motion to accept item 10A.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Dr. Wilson or straight to counselor?
Counselor?
The first one is we're just adding to the associate degree workload, the practical nursing instructors, they have the same requirements. And the second was the revised parking policy to bring in, so that resolve the discrepancies between the student catalog and the policy, and to update the fact that we don't use decals anymore, we have hanging permit tags.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions or comments, discussions? Okay, please call the vote by acclamation.
All those in favor of item 10A, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for item 10B?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Wilson?
Ms. Perez, would you like to?
As mentioned earlier, during the RFP process, we were able to secure 12 submissions for the request for proposal for the health and auxiliary benefits. And we received 2 responses for the healthcare, and it is the recommendation of the Benefits Committee to award ASBAID, which is our current provider, to continue the health benefits as being the more advantageous to the district. And then Denta coverage would be MedLife, vision coverage through Delta, and then all the other elective coverages through Mutual of Omaha. We did have, just to provide a little bit more insight as to the committee, we did engage people, representatives of our certified staff, or classified staff, people that we knew had a deeper dive into our health benefits coverage, based on specific situations. And then we also wanted to make sure that both campuses were represented through the main and power campus.
So to sum up, we had this policy. We noticed there were some problems. We asked other people if they had anything better, and we found they indeed did not. So we're going to stay with, or are we fixing some of the problems that we had with this new policy?
So one of our issues that we found out is we transitioned from Kairos, who used to be our provider, into ASBAID, and I know that a lot of our users struggled, and we've had conversations with the current providers and expressed the concerns that our staff had. It could be anywhere from delays in processing of claims to, in some cases, customer service. We do understand from, and this is the information that was shared with us, is that they, because they had a lot of new districts that came into their pool, they had to do a lot of hiring. So it was in some sense, it was part of the growing pains, which obviously we don't minimize that as being impactful on our employees, but we wanted to make sure that they were fully aware of the issues that our staff members were encountering. We asked that moving forward, we get additional professional development as it relates to the plan offerings, and if there are any changes, any plan changes, or anything that really helps the end users to really understand. I mean, healthcare in general is difficult to just navigate and understand when you have deductibles, when you have in-network and out-of-network. So we ask that they please provide us with additional resources that we can then pass along with to our staff to make sure that they have information or are better informed, or even just better consumers of healthcare.
And I think one of the committee members made an interesting point, that, if we were to switch healthcare providers just for whatever reason, there's no assurance that the customer service of the new provider is going to be any better than what we received with this provider. But the cost associated with switching to a new provider would be significantly larger than staying. And so the thought process was, if really the issue isn't the plan itself, but just our interaction with a third party, no assurances that that would be any better with a new provider or a new third party. So why not wait another year and see if it improves and gets better? And if it does, great. If not, then we can be right back in the same spot next year.
Give them a chance to work out the kinks, knowing that we're not happy, and, okay, that makes sense. Any other questions on this? Okay, please call the vote on item 10B.
All those in favor of item 10B, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Let's move to item 10C. That's salary increases. I believe Mr. Hobson has a motion.
Yep, Madam President, I move that we approve a salary increase of 5%.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Question, yes.
So just a question for clarification from Counselor. Would this be a position that they could amend the motion to be a 5% and to include a $1,000 stipend for completing a contract? Or can that be done in that motion or not?
Sure.
Yeah.
And I would make that
Amend it that way.
amendment to the motion with the permission of the second, of course.
Oh, you have my permission. Yes, I second that.
Okay, do we want to discuss this? Any opinions? I have an opinion, if nobody wants to say anything. I'm glad, Mrs. Perez, you clarified that some of the higher numbers are not very prudent, if that's an accurate word. We have given a lot of pay raises, and they felt really good. I think everybody up here knows that's a really good dopamine hit. It feels good. I think we are in kind of a precarious, weird position with our IGAs. I don't think we've ever been here before, and how that's going to affect students' true attendance. We don't know what the districts are going to do in the next 2 months. We don't know what the legislature is going to do in the next week, months, who knows? And I love the 5%. It just makes me nervous. And I feel like since we have a window of 3 to 5%-ish, I think it's in our best interest as an entity to go on the more conservative side of a 3%. I know that might not be very popular, but the single most important thing we do as a board is we make sure that this budget and EVIT is solvent, because if we don't have a good budget, it doesn't matter who we hire as a superintendent, it doesn't matter which teachers we get, because if we don't have the money to run this entire entity, nothing else matters. And we've seen some really bad examples of poor board government and management of the budget on the west side. And so I am not quite comfortable with 5. I would rather we do a 3 and the stipend, just to cover ourselves for this year. With a 50% increase in the last 7 years, we've shown that as a board, we are generous. We are looking out for the employees. We like to give pay increases. I just feel like this year is a very touchy year, and it would behoove us to be more conservative than feel good at this moment. That's where I'm coming from. Those are my thoughts.
Madam President, may I make actually, I think it's more like a statement question, combination thereof. You, Ms. Perez, you mentioned that there's a $6 million carryover. And I realize that in simplistic terms, not knowing exactly, I don't want to get into the details of how that's going to, pot out. Could that actually be considered a comfort level for a 5% raise?
Yes, so when we look at the impact to the general fund, because as I mentioned, we know that we're going to receive a 2% increase to the base level, and then we also have a number of the positions, about approximately 25% of the positions are either grant funded or adult ed funded. And those funds we do have in place to offset. We're looking, if we do the entire compensation that we've talked about, we're looking at about $450,000 that we would tap into that $6 million carry forward to offset the expense of being able to provide it for the new year without taking into account whether or not we'll see an enrollment increase.
Okay. So technically, looking at just strictly numbers, the $6 million that you just talked about, the individuals who are paid on grants, the adult ed funding, all those other areas that come off of, that are not part of M&O. And if we look at the 5% increase on the spreadsheet that you provided, the total cost of that is $1,357,831, $1,357,831. So technically, in simplistic form, if we look at that $6 million and those other individuals that are paid off of other funding streams, then we are actually looking at almost roughly a $4 million benefit, not profit, I know that's not the right word, but if we just looked at the $6 million. Surplus, thank you. Surplus and the 5%, we are actually in good shape. Technically.
We are in good shape as it relates to the surplus that we have this year. I just want to clarify that the 1.3 encompasses all different funds, not just the M&O. The $6 million that I've referenced in my presentations has been only in the general fund.
Correct. I'm looking at totals. Coming in, what we have versus what we would be going out if we were at 5%. Okay, I was just looking at totals. Okay, thank you.
Madam President, I want to honor your concern, because I very much respect it and admire you, as you know, Amber. I think that the 5% is the middle road, actually, and I'm for a lot of the reasons that you said. I think it keeps us in parity with MTech and the other districts. I think it's just about going to be what we're going to be looking at in terms of inflationary increases, candidly, in the next 6 months. And so I think it is the middle ground. But having said that, I again want to honor your concern, and it's one that I struggle with always. My tendency is, you probably know this about me, to get more, but I think it's that is the kind of middle ground. So again, I respect very much your concern, and I worry about that.
It's a struggle every year. It's always great when we are more than happy to give a lot. That's great. So we still have ongoing litigation, and if it's slow, that's going to be really costly. Factoring that in, that it goes through the end of this year or maybe even next year, how does that play into this? Is that a huge chunk of that 6 million left over?
No.
Because we don't know how much that's going to be if it keeps going. I mean, that's a...
Obviously, it's going to depend on how long it goes, but we do have other funding sources for litigation that is separate, that is not included in the 6 million.
True, but I know buckets move and some buckets can't move and things happen and...
I think you make a really valid point, and I think it's something I struggle with all the time, because the last thing I want to do is be sitting here and having to reduce salaries at some point in time because things just didn't work themselves out. I also think that, we're faced in a position where when we're competing against not only the private sector, but other CTEDs, and yes, we currently have a very competitive compensation compared to the other CTEDs, especially on the West Valley. But you guys have worked really hard, I believe, as a board over the last 10, 12 years to not create that gap. And so I don't think a 3% moves us way far away. I don't think a 5%, inevitably the differential of 2%, I don't think is going to hamstring us financially this next year. I think my big concern is what does, a year from now look like? And we've said before that I was never concerned necessarily about 26, 27. The concern for me became 27, 28, 28, 29, and hence the reason why we talked about adult education and things like that. And so, to me, the issue isn't, from my perspective, it isn't, can we cover it next year? It's what impact are we going to be facing 2 years from now, 3 years from now? And we may be still growing. I mean, so I understand your point, and I would support whatever direction the governing board made. But for this year, I don't know the 2% differential is going to be significantly problematic to this next fiscal year. I think where we start having concerns is what's it going to look like 2 or 3 years from now. And, we'll have to wrestle with what that looks like 2 or 3 years from now, good or bad.
Any other discussion? Any other questions?
I'll like to weigh in.
Oh, good.
I support the 5%, and I know it kind of pushes that comfort zone a little bit, but I think it helps us to maintain the highest quality product that we have, and we have the best product in the state, if not the nation. And our staff needs to feel that way, and if we get behind the curve on that, that's really hard to dig out of that hole. That takes a long time. I guess I don't quite share the concern that we can't afford to do that. I think we can't afford not to do that.
As in a return on investment, is that what you're
Yes,
trying to?
exactly.
Thank you.
I call for the question. Needs to vote.
Well, Madam Chairman,
Yes,
don't we already have a motion made and seconded
Yes.
to
We do.
accept the
We do.
5%?
we do. Yes.
Okay, I was going to have you reread it if I didn't understand.
With the
With the
the
stipend,
with the-
$1,000
Yeah.
stipend.
the $1,000 stipend for completing the year, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and Dr. Metcalf, please call a roll call vote on this.
Roll call.
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Covington?
Aye.
Mr. Hancock?
Aye.
Ms. McAfee?
No.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Dr. Metcalf is aye. Mr. Hobson?
Aye.
Mr. Watkins?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Excellent. That was a great debate. Thank you, everyone, for weighing in on all of the reasons. I think we discussed the whole thing robustly.
I think it was a great conversation. I'm going to say this because you guys are my bosses. I'm always impressed with your willingness to have those conversations, but then recognize you all are coming from a perspective that is well-intended because you want what's in the best interest of the organization. Sometimes you don't agree, and that's okay. You're not always going to agree, but you do it respectfully, so I always appreciate those.
Thank you. All right, we are now on action item 10D, hiring, salary, and guidelines. Well, I'll let whoever makes the motion read that, or just say 10D. I'll move to approve 10D. We'll just skip that part. How about that? Thank you. Okay.
Members of the governing board, so what we do is, if you remember back in the day, when we started to go down this road of trying to right the ship financially in terms of salary and compensation, what we found is that we had a base level that was really difficult to attract and retain staff. So you worked really hard over the years to adjust that base level. You did some additional compensation, you rearranged people. And one of the things we never wanted to do is to get back in a position where our base level was not being competitive. And so what we have historically done is whatever you offered as a % increase for current employees, we would then put as half of that increase into the base level. So therefore, we're always raising the base level, but we're not raising the base level to be over where an employee that exists here now would be compensated. So if you approve the 5%, that this would mean a 2.5% increase to the base level for our new hires. Does that make sense?
Okay, any questions or discussion on 10D? Okay, please call the vote by acclamation.
All those in favor of item 10D, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 10E, certified contract renewals. Yes.
So just, my two thoughts. E through I are all essentially the same thing.
I'll make a motion for E through I.
Thank you. I'll second it. Discussion, please call the vote by acclamation.
All those in favor of items
10E through I?
10E through I, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 10J. We have a motion.
Madam President, I make a motion to accept item 10J.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Wilson.
Members of the governing board, I'm going to turn this section and the next section and the next section and the next section over to Ms. Schwartz. Ms. Schwartz?
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Good evening, members of the governing board. So this item on your agenda for tonight is a resubmittal of programs that were missing one item or more for statutory compliance when they were submitted during our last governing board meeting in February where these were those have since been rectified for this agenda item.
So just to be clear, this is for Mesa, is this the handout here for the two high schools in Mesa, those
These are for the
programs?
correct, these are for the two programs in Mesa. Their resubmittal of those two programs for Mountain View's business management. They submitted a waiver for the teacher certification, and Westwood High School, the film and TV production, they submitted those teacher certifications, which is what was not in legal compliance for the last board meeting.
Perfect, okay. Okay, any questions on this, clarification? Okay, so we're moving to approve these programs because they've met all the criteria, is that correct?
Correct, yeah, you denied them previously because they didn't meet the requirements, but then per the IG, there's the ability for them to bring back submittal based on the correction, and they've done that.
Okay, please call for a vote by acclamation, Dr. Metcalf.
All those in favor of item 10J, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Okay, I need a motion for item 10K.
Move the approval of 10K?
I'll second. Okay,
Would you
Dr.
repeat the
Wilson?
motion, please? He
he moved to approve item 10K. And that's another satellite program resubmittal. It looks like it's Scottsdale, is that correct?
That is correct.
They seconded it.
I second,
Oh, you seconded.
right?
Okay,
Second, Tammy?
I wasn't
Yeah,
sure if it
okay.
was
I
my
know.
turn yet. Thank you. Again, this is a program that was submitted during our February governing board meeting. However, there was an item that did not meet the legal compliance for this program that was rectified by the Scottsdale District. Our recommendation for this program is that it be approved, but contingent upon offering the entire course sequence.
What do you think the likelihood is of them doing that?
There have been some challenges in the past of them offering the entire course sequence, so.
I want to
that is-
clarify program sequence.
Was that?
Sorry, I want to clarify the
Yes,
entire
I
program.
apologize. Program sequence, not course sequence. Thank you for that clarification.
What were some of those challenges? Can you specify?
Looking primarily at the data, the complete course sequence was not run. There were no students or minimal students enrolled in that completion course
Okay.
sequence.
Can you,
Thank you.
can you remind me which high school and which program, unless I'm not reading it?
Absolutely. It is Chaparral High School from Scottsdale, and it is the digital photography program.
Oh, okay, I remember that. Any other questions?
Digital photography.
Any questions, concerns? Okay, please call the vote by acclamation.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
that's Dr. Wilson. Yes, please.
So, Dr. Dillon?
Sorry, I just wanted to say, if you want to go with the recommendation by Dean Schwartz, you would need to redo, make an amendment to your motion and make it contingent on offering the complete program sequence.
Okay, so,
Make that amendment to the motion with the permission of the second.
okay, yes. Okay, are we good with legalese? Okay, please call the vote.
No, I understand.
Please call the vote.
All those in favor of item 10K, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to approve item 10L?
I move that we approve item 10L.
Second.
Okay, Dr. Wilson?
Ms. Schwartz? Dean Schwartz?
Members of the governing board, item 10L is from ALA, their applied technology programs of medical
Ms.
assistance.
Schwartz, I'm going to interrupt you. Did we separate welding from medical assisting, or are they both together?
They are both together under resubmitted
I just wanted
duplicate
to
programs.
let Mr. Howell also join you up there for the welding portion.
Yes. So these programs are resubmittals from ALA, from their applied technology program. We have medical assisting as well as welding technologies. These are both duplicative programs that are being resubmitted, but they are a separate agenda item because they do have historical denials associated with them. I can speak to the medical assisting program. We did do a site visit of that medical assisting program. Also spoke with ALA in the district on why they are offering what they are offering and some of the challenges that they're facing, which I believe you have in your packet. So one of the main differences is the medical assistant program is offering a slightly different certification than what the EVIT programming is offering. So here at EVIT, we are offering the Registered Medical Assistant certification. The reason that we offer that certification is they do have the requirement that students complete a 160-hour clinical externship in order to be eligible to sit for that certification. And in speaking with our advisory board here, members here from EVIT for our medical assistant program, that's the true currency that our students take with them is their experience in the field. Our advisory board members have said that it does not matter if it is a CCMA or a RMA. Either one of those would be sufficient working in the field, but the real currency is, did they actually have the hands-on experience to go out into the field and work with patients, and have they demonstrated that professionalism? And the only way that we are able to ensure that that happens in programs moving forward is with that RMA certification.
And is ALA offering any kind of hours, externship or anything?
So, and that was a question that was brought up to ALA, and they would like to implement an externship, but it would not be a requirement of the program. So they are indicating that they may have some barriers with sending students to clinical externship, such as transportation and as well as accumulating those hours that that RMA program would require, which is why that they're offering the CCMA. It doesn't require that clinical externship, but they would like to offer in the future the opportunity for students who would like to do that to go and do that clinical externship.
So it's the same title, but they're offering something completely different in reality, right?
So it's the same title of medical assistant,
Yes,
it's just a
but-
different certification. You're correct.
A much less certification, right?
It's not as stringent, so it doesn't have as much requirement. They're not doing programmatic evaluations of the curriculum for the CCMA, and there is no requirement to do the clinical externship with the CCMA. Those are specific to that RMA certification.
It sounds like that's,
Shortchanged.
yes, thank you, that's the term I was looking for. The
Shortchanged.
students are being shortchanged.
Yeah.
Because the quality of program that we are placing and the quality of program that they are placing seems to be less. And the students wouldn't be able to be at the same level as their peers if they were to come here. Correct? Do I have that kind of understood? I mean, I follow where you're going, but I'm trying to wrap it up in kind of a summary.
Dr. Doolin has her hand up.
Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna give it to
Yes,
Dr.
Dr.
Wilson.
Doolin.
And I think that the point, and this is something that I have to keep reminding myself, it is our program that's being ran there.
Yeah.
It is our program that is being ran there. It's not their program, it's an EVIT program, and I think it's not semantics, I think in there's a big difference.
Yeah.
That if we're going to be responsible for the CTED and the programming in the CTED, it's an EVIT, CMA, CNA, whatever program that's being ran at fill in the blank. So I think there is value in recognizing that when EVIT's brand is on it, there's a higher level of accountability and expectability in the quality of the program. Now, I will say this about ALA. I do think there is a pathway in the future for them to get where we need and would like them to go, to be able to have that kind of programming that is an EVIT program. I just think it's going to take a bit of time. And so I don't whatever your decision is, I would ask you to include it in a direction to the administration to continue to work with them to try to help build capacity in their system. Because some of the issues I know that Ms. Dean Schwartz and even Mr. Howe saw when they toured the campus, there are some solutions to those challenges, but they're not solutions that are going to happen overnight. It would require us to work with them hand in hand over the next year to be in a position that this time next year, potentially we come back to you and the EVIT RAN program at ALA that is MA carries with it the criteria that we would want from our programming that's offered anywhere within the CTED. That makes sense?
Yeah.
I have a question, if I may. It says here they've secured a trainer from Pima, but they're asking for a waiver for the teacher.
Oh, that's for
That's the
welding.
welding.
That's welding. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one.
Can I clarify one thing too? So you said in the advisors that EVIT has spoken to, it isn't that the CCMA or the RMA makes that much of a difference. It's the clinical experience, right? That really is the difference. And so if that's not being offered still, that's really what the hangup is.
That is
Right.
correct.
Okay.
In the state of Arizona, you actually do not need a certification in order to practice as a medical assistant in the state. So our members of our advisory board have said it is the clinical experience and demonstrating that you are competent in those medical assisting skills, working in a clinical environment, that is the true currency on what they would like to see for the students that they are hiring, or the graduates that they are hiring.
Okay.
Did ALA, I'm gonna, just so we're clear, and you found no documentation that ALA had an advisory meeting, or did they?
That is correct. I did ask about an advisory meeting, if they had any documentation stating what their advisory board had recommended, and they had not held an advisory board meeting or reached out to stakeholders regarding their our medical assistant program being run at their campus as of yet.
Wow. Yeah, I just think it would be so unfair to have a student at ALA taking an EVIT course thinking they're going to be on par with all the students who came to a main campus and then being shocked that they don't get hired and just them not knowing. It's an EVIT course, of course, it's the same, you know?
Yes, and then not only them not getting hired, but if they get hired and they don't have the skill set to be able to do the work, it's a disservice to the student, but it's also a disservice to the community that we serve. And that's,
absolutely.
our responsibility is to both. I know Mr. Howell toured the welding. Would you mind sharing information on what you gathered?
Madam President, members of the board, I was able to tour the ALA welding shop with Ms. Schwartz. There were 3 areas of concern that I had. One was lab procedure, and I'll get to these in a second. The second one was equipment, lack of equipment, and the third was a certification that was not being offered. With the lab procedures, there were 2 big issues that I had. One is they're grinding in their welding booths. They don't have a dedicated area for grinding. While that's not completely unsafe, it does pose some potential health or safety issues with sparks flying, everywhere in a confined space.
Wow.
And it does run a significant risk damaging the welding equipment. The welding equipment is not meant to have all that fine metal dust being in and around it. So it is standard procedure to have a separate grinding area for metal. The second hazard, that potential hazard, is they don't have a cooling trough for the metal. So typically you have like a water cooling trough type apparatus where you can put the hot metal in to cool it off, because it does get very hot. They do not have that. And basically letting it cool, in the weld booth. That's a safety issue. As far as equipment, they don't have plasma cutting. They don't even teach oxyacetylene cutting until the second year. That's a fundamental skill they need to learn before they even weld. And they don't have a CNC plasma cutter, plasma table. They don't have an orbital or a robotic welding unit, which we do have at the main campus. As far as certifications, I was told that they're being advised by someone outside of ALA that TIG welding, or tungsten inert gas welding, is not desired by industry, and therefore they're not going to offer that certification. That is far from true. TIG welding is aviation welding, it uses just TIG. There's huge segments of the welding industry that rely on TIG welding. So not sure why they think they shouldn't offer that, but that's an issue. So those are the three major areas of concern that I had.
I want to remind the board that you do have backup about the site visits. I asked both Dean Schwartz and Dean Howe. They provide that to you. And then I'm going to ask Mr. Howe the same question I asked Ms. Schwartz. Did they have an advisory committee that recommended what welding certifications they were offering?
I don't recall asking that question.
Okay.
Do you recall asking that question? Okay.
Yes, so I did ask about the advisory board meeting, and I was informed that they hold the welding advisory board meeting along with construction and I believe one other program. I can't remember that other program off the top of my head, but I have not received those advisory board documents as of yet.
So, we have a motion on this yet, Madam President?
I believe we do, yes.
So I would offer
Tammy.
substitute motion
Yeah.
to deny the requested resubmittal in 10L, and to direct the administration to work with ALA over the next year toward meeting our standards, so that with appropriate change, they might seek approval next year.
I'll second that. Yeah, I really hope that ALA can make the changes.
So is that an
appropriate
amended
needed.
motion?
That's
No,
an-
it's a substitute
second
motion.
motion
A what?
It's a substitute motion.
to deny it. So if you vote yes, you're voting to deny the
If
program.
if it's approved, the other one doesn't happen.
That was for both programs, so true?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, 10L,
Want to clarify.
10L.
Please call the vote, Dr. Metcalf.
What am I saying
You
again?
need a second, was there a second?
I seconded
Oh,
it.
sorry.
She did second it. So I am saying if they approve it, all those in favor say aye, which means it's denied,
Correct.
correct? Okay. All those in favor of item 10L,
Substitute motion.
substitute motion, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, we're on item 10M.
They're being a little picky.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve item 10M.
Okay, I will second. Dr. Wilson?
Members of the governing board, one of the things in our conversation with ALA is, and I say this in all due respect to them, that I think they're continuing to grow into understanding the different opportunities and pathways of career and technical education and being part of a CTED. And so I do think there's some value in us recognizing that as they're growing into that opportunity, there are going to be some hiccups that we need to reassess and reevaluate to make sure that we're being as fair as we can be. And one of those hiccups was, I don't believe that they understood that there were programs they could seek approval for. And so they didn't submit them to the governing board per the timeline of the IGA. The governing board has the authority to, in any contract to work, if you choose to, in a way that allows them to approve that, meaning you can waive that responsibility, you can waive that requirement within the IGA and allow them to submit to you programs that they had previously not submitted because they quite honestly didn't know that they could. And I don't believe that it was intentional. I think one of the things that we have tried really hard to do, and I encourage us to do it as much as we can, is even though we may not agree on programs, that we work as hard as we can to be gracious and understanding that sometimes people just make mistakes and they need some help. And so what you have in front of you here is American Leadership Academy is seeking the approval of 2 new programs that were not presented to you earlier because they just didn't know that they could. And you as a governing board have the authority to waive that timeline requirement and either approve or deny these programs. And so it would be the administration's recommendation that you entertain the approval or denial of the programs, simply because I think they deserve it because they just didn't know that they could do it. Now, I'm not endorsing you approve those programs. I'm just saying I think it's fair for you to entertain, fair to them for you to entertain or deny the approval, if that makes sense. So what's in front of you then are 2 programs that they're seeking approval for. And Ms. Schwartz, Dean Schwartz, would you like to speak to those 2 programs?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Wilson. So just to reiterate, we have, through American Leadership Academy, the Gilbert North High School and Mesa North High School had reported that they inadvertently left off automation and robotics from their new program approval. We do have the documentation that was submitted does meet the statutory requirement for those programs. So those 2 programs are 2 that ALA has requested to be approved. We also have 2 programs from the ALA Virtual Academy, which is graphic design and marketing. Those programs, the documentation that was submitted also, according to the documentation, met the requirements for statutory compliance. I did request additional information from ALA when I did the site visit for welding as well as medical assistant on 2 of those areas because it is a virtual academy. The first being how are we accomplishing the 51% or greater hands-on statutory requirement? And I was advised that as opposed to doing worksheets or things of that nature, completing questions, students would be doing project-based learning where they would learn about the information and then go do a project or do something in the community and then submit that for a grade. So that would be how that 51% of hands-on learning would be achieved. The other question that I brought up was the specialized equipment requirement in order to be legally compliant for CTE funding. And I was advised that generally, they issue Chromebooks to students. However, because of the greater demand of RAM and other specialized programming, such as Adobe, those students that are enrolled in either graphic design or marketing, they would be issued a PC as opposed to a Chromebook, and that PC would be equipped with the software and other equipment needed in order to complete those programs. So that was their justification for the extra funding and the hands-on.
Yes.
Madam President, Dr. Wilson, are you recommending then the approval of these?
So can I ask a couple of questions though for Dean Schwartz? So the Gilbert North programs, can
Yes.
you say those again, please?
Sure, the Gilbert North program and Mesa North, they're the same program. It's automation and robotics.
And do we offer automation and robotics?
We do not.
No. So Madam President, members of the Governing Board, in that situation, I think historically would tell us that that is something that you would approve, that it's not a duplicative program. It's actually a program that probably makes sense at the satellite campus level. So from an administrative perspective, I wouldn't have a problem approving that program just because it's consistent with what the decisions that you made previously or we as an organization have made previously. And then the other programs, they're which ones again?
Graphic design and marketing, and we do not offer those programs either.
But that's virtual?
It is virtual, correct?
Okay. Do you know, or maybe you know, who knows? Have we approved any virtual programming?
We have not approved any virtual programming in the past.
So my concern there, I mean, I know that Higley has asked at one point in time, and I think at the governing board's position is that at this point in time, there's still some concern about what actually that hands-on learning is going to look like. And so to answer your question, Mr. Hobson, I would pause on approval of the virtual around not really understanding what that looks looks like and direct administration to spend the next year really unpacking what that hands-on requirement, because the magic in career technical education is that hands-on. I mean, that is what makes us uniquely different. And I think if it were me and I was advising you, I would want you to have assurance that that magic wouldn't be lost in the virtual setting. And it might not be lost, we just don't know. And I think it's worth exploring over the next 10 months what that looks like, with the potential of coming back in the future and approving not just virtual in ALA, but virtual in our other member districts, should they present them as well.
Would you have a problem if we moved for the approval of the first program and deny the second, and recommending, again, the administration work with ALA to
You can do it anyway.
see how we might make the second one work?
I'm not,
You meaning
The virtual,
so the ones at Gilbert and Mesa North,
right.
they're not virtual.
they're not virtual. The
They're not.
non-virtual, I think,
two
makes sense. I think that's
first two
consistent with what you've
approve it,
done.
the
And then with
second
respect
two
to
we
the second.
And then directing the administration to really work with and understand so that we can have assurance that that 51%.
That'd be my motion.
I was gonna say, do
I
you
have
want
a
to,
question.
So real quick, I have a question. So have these programs, the graphic design and marketing, have they already been running? Or are they brand new? Because, and the reason I ask is the 51% hands-on, they gave you an answer that it was project-based. Seems like they've got a plan in place for that. Specialized equipment, they're issuing different computers with different hardware built into it. So that kind of does meet the standard, right? I mean, and if they've already been doing it, can they show us that already, or?
That's a great question. So marketing, they have been running the full course sequence. So that does have a full.
Virtually?
Virtually, yes.
Do we have any curriculum or documentation of that, or the projects that we're doing?
So the information that was submitted to the curriculum department was a curriculum map. I did not receive
So we
any.
didn't have any examples of student
plans.
work or anything like that?
No examples of student work in our teacher input form. As I had mentioned, they gave examples of project-based learning to achieve the 51% hands-on, having students do those projects, create those flyers, create videos, as opposed to completing
But we didn't
worksheets.
see any of those.
We have not seen those.
Do we see a rubric on any of those?
I have not seen a rubric.
So I'd be inclined to approve it if they can show us examples now versus making them wait a year to run the program.
We can bring that, we can bring
Yeah. You
those,
can
we can
table it.
reach back out and bring those back if you wanted to, we could do that.
I think that's fair.
I think that's fair.
I would be inclined not to, because they had their chance to do it. They knew what was going to be asked. To remain consistent with our theme tonight, I feel like it's apples to oranges, and we are looking for quality, and we have approved programs that meet our standard and quality, because that's what the Auditor General asked us to do, and we've taken that very seriously. So I feel like if we give them more chance, this is their second time coming back. I understand that there's things they didn't know, and they're still learning, but I feel like we need to maintain consistency and deny it, and so they can do all of it at once, rather than kind of, I don't know, piecemealing it here, giving them a chance. I feel like they should have more documentation for us and be able to answer more questions at this point that they haven't. So I would prefer not to table it, and I would make the motion that we deny the virtual, because I don't think they're there yet.
I would like to weigh in.
Of course.
On the virtual academy, I think these particular subjects would lend themselves very well for that environment. Plus the fact on here that the staff has recommended that we approve that.
The
What does that call a
the recommendation of approval is just that it meets the statutory requirement. That is all we bring forward as far as our approval. That's why we have these
Okay,
conversations
so,
in this setting.
You know, if that's something we don't really have a lot of experience with, I don't have any discomfort. Give it a try. There's everything. These two particular things, it's not like you go out and drive some nails and some boards or something. It's all virtual stuff, no matter where you have it.
Well, and to your point, I think that, you guys will have the ability, every single year, should you approve it or deny it, right? It's going to come back to you again next year, and I think there's the opportunity each and every year to readjust the decision you made previously. I think our concern is, and I think we're saying the same thing, is the standard that you're going to set is the standard that you're going to have to hold to. And that's okay, and I hear your point that, virtually these programs may lend themselves perfectly fine to the hands-on, because that's all it is. That's the standard you're going to set when other districts come, which is okay too. Or you say you want to take a year and make sure that there's clarity that you have as a board as to what that really is going to look like, and then you'll apply that same measure to any of the programs that come before you.
I think by doing that, we stifle innovation a little bit. ALA, I don't have any personal contact but we've kind of I think we were not doing our part to help them make things happen, rather than say, well, we got you here, we got you there. One thing that, and with all due respect, with the welding, the water trough. Well, a barrel of water is what 98% of welding shops in the whole wide world use. And that's nothing. Plastic barrel, you fill it up with water. And there's some welding processes where you don't quench it, because that changes the property of the metal. And so just throwing little gotchas out there, it really makes me uncomfortable.
I don't think it's gotchas.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I never want you to feel uncomfortable, and I think there's always the desire to make sure that we are being as responsive. I hope there isn't a belief that we're throwing little gotchas out there, because that is the furthest thing from the truth. I think in some ways, we've worked overly hard, especially with ALA, to try to get them to a point of having the product that would be a product that would be one that we would want to bring to you. And I think that the gotcha would have been to have never gotten to this point. I think what we're sharing is concerns that we had on the site visit. What you got in your backup from ALA spoke nothing about the quality of certification, spoke nothing about the quality of equipment, spoke nothing about the quality of safety. What it spoke about is things like distance to the campus. Well, that isn't what you guys have measured, how you're going to make your decisions. But we brought it back anyway. And we brought it back anyway because we sent a team out there to try to assess whether there would be the ability for us to work with them to get them to a point of approval. And so I think it was anything but a gotcha. I think it was a good faith effort to try to get them to a point that we could recommend that the standard would be commensurate with what we've set across the CTED. But I think you make valid points that when you look at the virtual academy, if they are running it, to the point made, if they are currently running it, then is there the ability for it to be tabled? And I understand President McAfee not wanting to table it, but to have Dean Schwartz seek more information and to bring it back so that it isn't a gotcha. Because may very well be that they are actually doing it and doing it well, and that would be something you would be comfortable with approving. From my perspective, I think, the first two programs, the HVAC and the welding, I don't believe that those are MA, medical assisting, MA and the welding, I don't believe that they carry the standard that we are expecting for an EVIT RAM program at ALA. I do think there's value in looking at the online to see, since they're already running them, is there artifacts that can be produced that would give confidence that there is the quality that's expected out of a EVIT RAM program. And you guys don't have to make the final decision on those tonight. We can come back 2 weeks later after we do our due diligence with ALA.
Madam President, may I
Yes.
make a comment?
Of course.
I feel that the consistency in our approvals, and granted, there's every detail that's different for every school and every program and demographic, what have you. But I think our consistency of message and our consistency of approval should stand. So in my opinion, I would feel more comfortable, having been a marketing teacher, I would feel more comfortable knowing more of what they have been doing or what they can be doing before finally approving either of these online programs. That's my opinion.
I appreciate that. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, full transparency, my kids go to ALA. So it's certainly, my concerns certainly nothing to do with any ill feeling or what have you. I want to really encourage the board, like Dr. Metcalf said, our whole theme of last year and this year seems to be consistency and focusing on quality of program to make sure that we are in charge of those satellite programs and that we are making sure that they are offering the same quality that we are. That's like the foundation of our IGA disagreement as well. But I can't say what we talked about in executive session, but Trish kind of had made a point of what we're focusing on. I guess I shouldn't have even brought it up. What are we really focusing on? We need to focus on quality of programs. That's what the Auditor General asked us. So I know some of these things might feel strange, but if we just look at quality, do we feel comfortable based on our denials and our approvals of the past with approving this right now? And I do not. I think we should table or we should deny, and I would really love for ALA to work this year to get as many things up to the standard that we want, and then approve and let them have success and reach more students. That's my focus here. Any other comments?
Madam President, I fully concur in what Amber has suggested, and I hope that the message goes forth that through the administration that we're encouraging you to work with ALA to come forward with programs that are fully compliant with our standards. I mean, as you pointed out, Dr. Wilson, these are our programs that are being offered at these different sites. So what Amber has said, I think I'm fully on board with.
Could I amend a motion to say that we will approve the ALA Greenfield North and Mesa North automation and robotics, and then we will deny the virtual academy graphic design and marketing?
With the completion of waivers?
Well, yeah, on the approval that they have everything now, is that correct? Or
No, they don't have.
Okay, yes, so it's with the completion of waivers.
And directing the administration to
Yes.
work with ALA.
Yes.
I don't want to belabor this, just so I understand a little bit better, are we, if we table the graphic design and marketing, are we saying they can't come back for another year?
We're saying they can come
Or
back.
can they come back, can we come back and address this in 2 weeks? Because I guess the point is, if we're going to spend time on this 12 months from now, what's the difference if we deal with it 2 weeks from now? If they can show us some artifacts of programs that they've been running and it meets our level of quality.
So my understanding is if you table it and give us direction to take the next 2 weeks and try to produce those artifacts, then essentially there's no decision on those programs tonight.
Yeah.
And then we bring them back for rediscussion 2 weeks from now based on whatever artifacts we're able to unpack. If you deny them currently, the mechanism is that the current mechanism is that there's nothing within the IG unless you waive it for them to come back again until next year. So it'd be another year before that opportunity would present itself.
That makes sense, thank you.
You want to change
I want to
it?
clarify, Ms. Schwartz, Dean Schwartz, for the automation and robotics at Gilbert North, Mesa North.
Yes.
Are they fully compliant?
Yes.
So they don't need a waiver for those two programs?
So
They've already submitted it?
Apologies. They are compliant with the waiver for the teacher and the course sequence.
But they
But
have
they've
those
submitted
waivers?
that.
Yes, so we have everything we need.
Yes.
Okay, so my motion didn't get seconded, so.
Second, sorry.
Oh, okay, well, maybe
I
it did.
interrupted you.
No, I was going to say, I can, whatever. Okay, so now that motion got seconded, so it is approving ALA, Greenfield North and Mesa North, automation and robotics, and denying ALA Virtual Academy graphic design and marketing.
I would
Till
appreciate you
the third,
tabling
please.
that.
First, you have to vote on
That would be a
amending the
different
motion.
motion.
Then you can vote
Oh,
on the amended
gosh.
motion.
Let's just do the north,
So we have to do the Gilbert North and Mesa North first.
But we have to vote on amending the motion.
Yes.
You
Okay,
made a motion.
Can't
to
you just
amend the
offer
motion. So first you vote on-
substitute motion, can't
So you
you?
could- That also you could do. If you offer it as a substitute motion, then you don't
And
have to
then
do
you
the
don't have to
second.
or whoever made the first motion can withdraw.
No, you just
Oh,
say your motion's a substitute motion.
Okay, so I have a substitute motion as stated previously.
Good to go.
Okay,
Second.
okay, so please call by acclamation, or by roll call, please call by roll call. Roll
So
call.
can I just check in my comprehension?
Yeah.
Okay, so the motion that is on the table right now is to approve the programs at ALA Gilbert and
Mesa.
Mesa, and to deny the virtual programs. That's what the motion is right now. Okay.
And to
And to
direct,
direct administration, right?
Yes.
But that means they cannot come back to us for another year.
Given the
For
current
those two
IGA, correct,
programs.
for those two programs, given the current IGA, correct.
Is it possible to change the motion to table the other one so we can come back sometime?
Make the motion and get a second.
Yeah.
You got one,
I will
substitute
so
motion you can
move
make.
to change the denial on the virtual academy to a table for further information at our next meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other changes? Why not? Anybody else want to weigh in? Okay,
So,
Everyone's a
That's being
tennis
offered as a
match?
substitute motion again?
yes,
Okay.
that's a substitute motion
Second
made by
degree,
Mr.
that's-
Lane, seconded by Mr. Hunt, correct?
Hancock.
Hancock, I know who you
So-
are. I know who
so-
you are.
So you're approving Gilbert Mesa and you're tabling the virtual classes?
Yes.
Which means it might be brought back.
Correct.
It doesn't have to be because it's not tabled to a date certain.
Okay. Please call the vote by roll call.
Okay.
Well, did we second that, by the way?
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Hancock.
Second, third, fourth.
Item 10M, approval of Gilbert North and Mesa North ALA automation and robotics programs. Mr. Lane.
Well,
Yes.
It has to include.
And
And tabling.
And
And
tabling.
I'm sorry, you're
And
putting them together, I
tabling
was
the
putting
other
them
two.
separately. And tabling the Virtual Academy graphic design and marketing programs,
That would be an aye.
okay?
And directing the administration.
And directing administration to work with ALA to bring those programs into fruition. Okay,
Still an aye.
okay. Mr. Covington,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Ms. McAfee,
Aye.
Mr. Hunt,
Aye.
Dr. Metcalf is aye. Mr. Hobson?
Could you state that again?
No,
Aye.
no, my hair's on fire already.
Mr. Watkins.
And Mr. Watkins.
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries.
Okay.
That's okay.
Get the-
It's all right.
Thank you very much for all the
Thank you.
information. And we are on item 11, staff reports. Dr. Wilson.
members of the governing board, I'd like to make a substitute motion. If we can.
No more, no more.
Call it a day. That's it, we're done, no more. No, there's nothing, we're just, spring break, most of the faculty and staff was gone. I appreciate, folks having the time to get away and to recharge. I know that this last quarter will go by like a blink of an eye. We have the associate degree graduation, I believe on the 20th or the 30th, the April 20th, the AA? Any? Bueller?
30th, isn't it
The 30th, I'll say, so in the month of April, we have yeah, month of April. We have the associates, we have the completion ceremony, we have TSA testing, we have certification exams, and so this last quarter will go by like a blink of an eye. But I said this earlier in the meeting tonight, and I do appreciate you as a governing board. I think you guys have thoughtful discussions and engagement with one another and with the administration. And like I said, we're not always going to agree, but I think we always come from a perspective of wanting to do what's in the best interest of our students and our communities, and that is a unique dynamic when you look at school districts and school systems today. So thank you for that. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you. I also want to thank each member of this board for our discussion tonight and for bringing up different ideas and working together. I think we came to some good decisions tonight and always hoping for what's best for the students.
I'd also like to reflect that our substitute president has done a great job in the absence of Mr. Boyle.
Yes, well done.
And he should pay attention because she's
There's
done
been
his
no
job.
blood, there's been no physical violence. I think we're doing okay. If I drank, I'd say let's meet afterwards, but I'm just going to go home with Diet Coke. Okay, so closing items. Next board meeting is April 13th and adjournment. This is
I
where
so
it gets
move.
physical. Okay, here we go.
Second.
There we go.
All those who want to stay, say aye. All those who want to go, say nay. Are we staying?
Vote for adjournment.
Adjournment.
All in favor,
For
say
adjournment. If
aye.
you want to leave, aye.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
We're adjourned.
Motion carries.